The Nissan Skyline GT-R. The pinnacle of Nissan's performance engineering, a wolf in a sheep's skin, a motorsports legend that firmly placed Nissan as one of the greatest. But this legend was not born at Nissan. No, it was an entirely separate company, a small, struggling firm driven by visionaries who dreamt big and achieved something greater. This is a story of the daring minds behind the Prince Motor Company, the father of the Skyline and Japan's first ever purpose-built race car. In a most unfortunate turn of events, Japan joined the Second World War on the wrong side of history. Then they lost. Badly. In the late 1940s, much of urban Japan was a pile of rubble. Cities were leveled and the industries paralyzed. It was a severe blow to not just Japan's economy, but their national pride as well. The Allied powers subsequently occupied the island, banning several defense-related industries, including aircraft production. But this heavy restriction on industries did not last long. In the years immediately following the end of the war, Japan found itself in an economic crisis. The political tension concerned the Allied powers of a communist takeover within Japan. The occupiers reversed course on Japan. Suddenly, the tables had turned. Japan was to build up its industries, including the automobile sector. They wanted Japan to form a stable economy that would act as a bulwark against the red tide. Japan's Ministry for International Trade and Industry, the MITI, was created in 1949 to ensure the survival of Japan's domestic industry, including the automotive sector. Several protective measures, such as high tariffs on import cars, were placed to buy enough time for the domestic companies to catch up to the Western standards. Amidst this, a small electric car company was looking to move into gasoline-powered cars. The Tama Electric Car Company. The company was a spin-off of Tachikawa Aircraft Company that had moved into building cars since the ban on aircraft production. They began with a battery-powered car as gasoline was a scarce resource in post-war Japan. But the reverse course for Japan also meant the relaxation of oil imports, which steadily decreased the price of gas. The outbreak of the Korean War in 1950 also saw the price of lead spike, a crucial ingredient for batteries back in the day. With electric cars looking less and less desirable, Tama decided to build gasoline cars, and they turned to a company with a reputation for building great engines, Fuji Precision Industries. Little did they know back then, this partnership between Tama and Fuji would result in age-defining cars that would inspire generations of petrolheads of Japan. The head of both engineering and sales department of Fuji Precision was Ryoichi Nakagawa. You see, Fuji Precision was one of a dozen spin-offs from Nakajima Aircraft Company that had dissolved due to the ban on aircraft production in Japan after the war. Nakagawa had actually worked for Nakajima before the dissolution, where he built aircraft engines. He was good at it too. His engines eventually powered some of the most capable fighters in World War II, the Zero. And when Nakajima dissolved after the war, Nakagawa found himself at Fuji Precision, overseeing the building of smaller and less harmful goods like sewing machines and film projectors. But the company had always intended to join the automotive industry. So when Tama came to Fuji Precision to collaborate in building a car, Nakagawa saw it as their golden ticket. And under his supervision, the company produced a 45 horsepower, 1500cc four-cylinder engine modeled after the 1.2-liter Peugeot engine. After a couple of prototypes, the engine eventually powered Tama's first ever gasoline-powered car in 1952, the Prince sedan. The same year, Tama changed their company name to Prince Motor Company. And it was around this time that a young, spirited engineer joined the company. Shinichiro Sakurai. Sakurai was fresh out of Yokohama National University when he joined Shimizu Corporation, a construction company. But his passion lay elsewhere. Ever since he was young, he had an interest in things that moved. Following a natural course for boys his age, the interest eventually led to cars. But fresh out of school, he struggled to find work in the auto industry and settled for a position at Shimizu. And in just 1 year, he had been promoted to section chief. And it was then that a certain motor company was developing its very first car. Sakurai joined the Prince Motor Company with the development of the Prince sedan well underway. He had little to no knowledge in how cars worked or were built, and he spent days and nights reading and studying every mechanical detail in building a car. No doubt the senior engineers at Prince Motor Company, including Nakagawa, had great influence on Sakurai. As most of the engineers at Prince Motors had an aeronautical background, their standards for build quality was unusually high. At this point, the owner of both Tama and Fuji Precision, Shojiro Ishibashi, saw this partnership as inseparable. Ishibashi decided to merge the two companies together, dropping the Prince Motor Company name. But they would quickly revert back to Prince Motor Company in 1961. And during that time, the company produced some of the finest Japanese cars of the period, the Prince Gloria and the Prince Skyline. While Sakurai mostly contributed to the Skyline as a chassis engineer, the Skyline models would later come to define his career and his legacy. Both the Skyline and the Gloria were widely praised for their practicality and reliability. While many of the domestic brands like Nissan were partnering with foreign companies to bridge the technological gap between Japan and the West, Prince Motor Company, much like Toyota, forged their own path of internally developed technology. The first generation Skyline was a full-size boxy sedan. Sure, it came with a fancy two-tone paint job and a powerful engine that made it the fastest Japanese production road car ever made, but there was still work to do for Prince to turn this family sedan into a race-winning sports car that we associate with the Skyline name today. In 1962, Ryoichi Nakagawa traveled to Belgium and took with him his subordinate, Sakurai. Their visit to Belgium had coincided with a major motorsport event, Formula One. Strangely, Nakagawa recalls them visiting Belgium around 1960, whereas the Nissan Heritage cites 1962. As Nakagawa did not give a firm date, I'm inclined to believe the 1962 date, as the year also lines up with Prince Motors entering their car in the Belgium Rally. But the rally did take place 2 months after the Grand Prix, so perhaps the two events were unrelated. Anyway, back to the story. The two decided to pay a visit to see what this Formula One talk was all about. Nakagawa and Sakurai were walking along the pits, and Nakagawa, in his memoir, recalled the following. The smell of the castor oil lubricants and the sound of engines being revved up rapidly made me nostalgic about my former days at Nakajima. To Mr. Sakurai, who was traveling with me, I said, "One of these days we're going to build a V12 dual overhead camshaft engine with 4 valves per cylinder, which will generate 600 horsepower. So I want you to create the world's best GT car." An oddly specific set of instructions, but the message was clear. The two quickly agreed. They were going to build race cars. The following year saw Japan host their inaugural Grand Prix at the brand new Suzuka circuit. These first few Japanese Grand Prix were sports car races and not part of the Formula One calendar. And Prince was going to race in it. They had big ambitions and even bigger hopes. But when the checkered flag dropped, Prince Motors had to accept an embarrassing defeat. Prince participated in the B2 class and the C6 class, where they were each defeated by a Nissan and a Toyota respectively. In Prince's defense, the Skylines and Glorias they had entered were virtually road-going production cars. Unsurprisingly, they were outclassed by a lot of the cars in the field. Apparently, Prince Motors was abiding by a gentleman's agreement that the manufacturers wouldn't get actively involved in the racing scene, thus participating in the races with bone-stock road-going cars. Obviously, none of their rivals abided by this agreement. The loss hurt. But big dreams aren't quelled from a single failure. They learned their lessons, and they never made the same mistake twice. In 1963, Prince Motors revealed their second-generation Skyline, the S50. The car was smaller than its outgoing model and came with unparalleled reliability. More exciting for Sakurai, however, was the race-going version he began working on in preparation for the 1964 Japanese Grand Prix. Prince Motors had planned to enter both their new Skyline and Gloria for the event, but Sakurai sensed a problem early on. The 1.5-liter engine in the Skyline was just not up to the task. The car needed more power. The decision was made to transplant the 2-liter 6-cylinder engine from the Gloria into the smaller Skyline. The problem was its size. The engine simply wouldn't fit under the hood of the Skyline. The simplest solution would be to stretch the engine bay of the car. And that was precisely what Sakurai did. The Skyline GT. The elongated Skyline was prepped for the race, and on May 3rd, the cars lined up on the Suzuka grid, hoping to bounce back from their last year's embarrassment. The car was fast, really fast. Although the elongated wheelbase made the car difficult to handle, that extra power in a light chassis proved that Sakurai's intuition was correct. The car really seemed like a race winner. Except there was one giant hurdle, a German hurdle. The Porsche 904. There are rumors that claim that the Porsche 904 driven by Shikiba at this race was a Prince killer sponsored by Toyota. Toyota had no real answer to the Skylines at the time, and had hoped that the Porsche would spoil Prince's day with yet another defeat. The Porsche was a purpose-built race car. It was meant to drive faster around a circuit than anything around it, and nothing else. The Skylines, while showing promising speeds, were essentially family sedans at their core. Whether Toyota had bought that Porsche or not, the second Japanese Grand Prix was probably a forgettable day for Toyota. During the race, one of the Skylines, driven by Tetsu Ikuzawa, overtook the Porsche to lead the German car for a full lap. The Japanese crowd rose in a feverish cheer, and despite being passed by the German after just one lap, that one lap was all they needed. The race proved to the Japanese fans that Prince Motors was in it to win it, and they had the cars to back it up. It was the greatest PR event Prince Motors could ever dream of, sponsored by Toyota. Maybe. The Porsche would eventually win the race, but the Skylines would take the second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. It was the beginning of the Skyline legend. Nakagawa and Sakurai dreamt big, and they saw them through. The Skyline 2000 GTs had inspired an entire generation of Japanese motorsports fans. Only the ultimate glory remained, an outright victory at the Japanese Grand Prix. The Porsche 904 left a great impression on Sakurai and the Prince team. Their defeat against the 904 only ignited their urge to build a better car. To win a Grand Prix, they needed a mid-engined, purpose-built race car, just like the 904. The development was headed by Shinichiro Sakurai. Armed with a wealth of experience from building the Skyline GT, he set his team to produce Japan's first ever purpose-built racing car, the R380. Now thankfully, they didn't have to start from complete scratch. Prince Motor Company purchased a Brabham BT8 chassis, on top of which the team mounted an original aluminum body. The engine was original too, 4-valve dual overhead camshaft straight-six GR8 engine, producing 200 horsepower. With a striking red paint job, the car looked like a proper race car. Even more impressive was their development pace. The car was ready in time for the upcoming 1965 Japanese Grand Prix, except the event was cancelled. Due to disagreements with the hosting venue and the Japan Automobile Federation, the third Japanese Grand Prix planned to take place at Suzuka was no more. So instead of kicking back and enjoying an extended summer break, Prince Motors took their new R380 and casually broke 6 new land speed records over 4 categories, over distances ranging from 50 to 200 kilometers. Unfortunately, the Yakube track where they had tested was not approved by the FIA, making the records invalid for international record keeping. Regardless, the R380 proved to be a formidable race car. There was a real chance for a first Grand Prix win. In 1966, the long-awaited Japanese Grand Prix returned, this time to the newly constructed Fuji Speedway. Prince Motors entered 4 R380s, pitting them up against their greatest rival, the Porsche 906. The 906s had already established themselves as a dominant force in the Grand Prix racing scene, having swept up multiple class wins throughout the 1966 season. The time had come to finally put Sakurai's Japanese race car to the test. And here at the Fuji Speedway, in just its 3rd Grand Prix, Japan had finally awarded a Japanese maker with the gold, silver, and bronze. The R380s came in 1st, 2nd, and 4th, the last podium step taken by a Toyota. The Porsche had retired due to an accident. It wasn't the kind of photo finish people expected to see, but it hardly mattered. Prince had won. The dream Nakagawa and Sakurai had shared 4 years ago at the Belgian Grand Prix finally came true. But that same year, Prince Motors was about to shut down its business. In 1964, Japan became a member of the OECD and accepted the Article 8 of the IMF agreement, which meant that Japan had to abide by their obligations, including eliminating restrictions on trade. You see, the Japanese auto industry had been benefiting from MITI's protective import regulations, which bought them time to bring the manufacturing costs down so that they may stand a chance against established giants from the West. But with a changing economic policy, MITI believed that in order for Japanese companies to survive in the international stage, the companies had to consolidate and grow in scale. This was particularly impactful to Prince Motor Company. While their racing heritage and a low tolerance for cheaply built parts had bought them prestige and brand recognition, it also brought unsustainably high production costs. And their low volume production didn't help. MITI therefore advised the company to merge with a larger company that had the means to mass-produce cars, and that would also value the racing and technology-oriented philosophy of Prince Motors. Nissan. In 1966, Nissan finalized the merger. But instead of shutting down Sakurai's racing team, Nissan guaranteed full support and even preserved the prestigious Skyline brand. In 1969, with Sakurai as its chief engineer, the Nissan Skyline GT-R was revealed. The beginning of the GT-R badge that has become inseparable with the company's brand image today. The car was mounted with the GR8 engine that had powered the race-winning R380. And unsurprisingly, the GT-R went on to absolutely wipe the floor with its rivals in the Japanese motorsports scene. Between 1969 and 1972, the GT-Rs, both the 4-door and the 2-door variants, contributed to 52 victories in the domestic touring car races, cementing the GT-R name as some of the greatest race cars ever made. Shinichiro Sakurai went on to oversee the following generations of the Skyline up until the 7th generation, while producing some of the most striking and technologically advanced race cars of the time. The R381 in particular stands out, sporting variable rear wings that would adjust their angle separately to keep the car stable in the corners. As for Ryoichi Nakagawa, he went on to become Nissan's managing director, developing electronic parts for Nissan cars. He brought his quality testing procedures he had learned from his airplane engineering days, ensuring Nissans to stand out in reliability and quality. Although the name Prince has disappeared from the cars, the soul of Nissan, the GT-Rs, and its racing heritage can all be traced back to Prince Motor Company and the brilliant minds behind them. The men met moments of failure, loss, and defeat, and yet they refused to let their big dreams be stamped down by the world around them. To them, failure was just another reason to do better. They persisted throughout the ups and downs and firmly engraved themselves into the Automotive Hall of Fame. I wanted to close this video with one last thought for myself. Nakagawa, along with many of the engineers from Tachikawa and Nakajima Aircraft Company, were active players in producing weapons of war. There's no question as for his achievements in the field of engineering, but it is perhaps irresponsible for me to overlook the darker part of his history. He may have just had an innocent fascination for airplanes, nothing unusual, but his planes were used to kill. Both can be true. I make this note to myself so that the people I choose to remember are remembered as fully as I can. Thank you for watching this video.